Hello, dear friends. I searched for peace everywhere, finding it only in a corner and with a book. Said Thomas of Kempis. Something similar happened to me, but this job takes away my reading time because I am an eternal student, a bookworm, as well as a writer rather than a speaker. Opinion piece, independence, autonomy, sovereignty, hierophany, emancipation, atrophied intuition, the art of being free, perennial philosophy, not marrying anyone, nostalgia for the origin, the matrix is collapsing, autonomy and solidarity, manifestation of the sacred, third attempt to kill Trump, artificial weather modification. Let's start. People celebrate the idea of independence as freedom from the oppression of an external source, which seems to have more power than the freedom fighter. Becoming sovereign means recognizing one's own power of self determination, self guidance, and self direction. Becoming spiritually independent means that one begins to become aware of one's power of free will. The declaration of independence of a true metaphysician is literally my mind creates my matter. The word independence is very contaminated at the political level because it is often synonymous with division, confrontation, and selfishness. Media outlets that call themselves independent but are not but are not have also been discredited because each one relies on a source of funding to which they owe obedience as the voice of their master. Independent is someone who maintains their rights or opinion without admitting outside intervention, but I am referring above all to spiritual independence, which is best which is based on listening and learning from everyone without marrying anyone. That is very difficult because human beings in plural are usually sectarian by nature and tend to form closed groups that follow the same path that everyone has trodden. They consider themselves to be in possession of the absolute truth, and they despise all those who do not think like them. Imitators. Every time we follow someone else's path, we are nothing because we are not following our own path, says the Harlequin. This phrase had a great impact on me because I have tried to follow many other paths throughout my life, and it has never worked because it was not my path, and because we cannot walk through life in someone else's shoes. Throughout life, we take on different social or professional roles to survive or to stop being recognized by society because it is not well seen to be oneself. But each role we take on distances us from our true essence, although there are some roles that bring us closer to ourselves, as in the case of authentic professional vocation. The idea of following other people's paths was started by the 15th century German Dutch Augustinian canon Thomas Kempis with his book Imitation of Christ, written anonymously in Latin for the spiritual life of nuns and friars, one of the best known works of Christian devotion since then. It has been the most published Catholic book in the world after the Bible, and it gives useful advice for the spiritual life. The problem is that we cannot imitate anyone, no matter how good the model is, but rather follow the best original version of each one. There cannot be two identical Christs or two identical Buddhas, because that is contrary to the laws of nature that are based on the originality and unrepeatable singularity of each being. Theosophy. 19th century theosophy tried to break this ignorant religious sectarianism when it said that there is no religion higher than truth, as did the study of comparative religions, and as did the 20th century Romanian philosopher Mircea Eliade in his 3-volume History of Religious Beliefs and Ideas, 1985. Theosophy designates an ageless eternal wisdom, which is none other than the knowledge of true reality. Just as science does not create the laws that govern nature, but discovers them, theosophy is reality, and human beings are progressively learning portions of knowledge of this reality. Theosophy proposes that all current and ancient religions arose from a common teaching or core, which has been hidden under the veil of doctrines that were developed over the following centuries, often leading to contradictions of the original teaching. The comparative study of science and philosophy is another way of approaching this original teaching, which is nothing other than the permanent reality that underlies the sensible world subject to constant development. Comparative religion. Mircea Eliade develops philosophical concepts such as homo religious, the sacred, hierophany, alchemy, shamanism, yoga, symbol and myth, cosmic Christianity, and sacred time. It is the largest and most important encyclopedic spiritual work that I know of on the subject due to its coherence and ability to synthesize diverse and distinct mythologies. Eliade is known for his attempt to find broad cross-cultural parallels and unities in the various spiritual traditions, particularly in myths. Eliade's thinking was influenced in part by the writings of René Guénon and Julius Evola. For example, Eliade's sacred and profane draws on the German Protestant theologian Rudolf Otto, who made a comparative study of various traditions to show how religion arises from the experience of the sacred and from the myths of time and nature. Eliade thought that Indians and Chinese mystics attempted to achieve a state of perfect indifference and neutrality that resulted in a coincidence of opposites in which pleasure and pain, desire and repulsion, cold and heat are eliminated from their consciousness. The Stoics said the same thing. Eliade's perspective is centered on this concept of hierophany or manifestation of the sacred. Hierophany. Hierophany is the manifestation of the sacred in a profane reality. Hierophanies give a structure and orientation to the world, establishing a sacred order, but profane space does not provide humans with any pattern for their behavior. A hierophany is equivalent to the revelation of an absolute reality, as opposed to the non-reality of the vast expanse around it. In traditional societies, myth represents the absolute truth about primordial time. Only the sacred has value. Only the first appearance of a thing has value. And therefore, only the first appearance of the sacred has value. Myth describes the first appearance of the sacred, and therefore the medieval age is sacred time, the only time of value. Primitive humans were only interested in beginnings, in the origins of all things. That is why there is nostalgia for the origin that appears in many traditions, the desire to return to a primordial paradise. Perennial philosophy. To see a world in a grain of sand and a paradise in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour, said William Blake. The physical world is not the only reality. There is another non-physical reality. The material world is the shadow of a higher reality that cannot be grasped by the senses, but the human spirit and intellect bear witness to it in their deepest essence. All human beings possess an unused and atrophied capacity for intuitive perception of ultimate or absolute truth and the nature of reality. This perception is the ultimate goal of human beings, and its development is the purpose of their existence. This coincides with the perennial philosophy, a concept coined by Leibniz that is based on the existence of a universal set of truths and values common to all peoples and cultures. The existence of a perennial philosophy is the fundamental principle of the writings of René Guénon and the Indian writer Ananda Coomaraswamy. In Spain, perennial philosophy has one of its greatest exponents in the figure and extensive work of the philosopher and writer from Badajoz, Antonio Medrano. According to Aldous Huxley, perennial philosophy is the metaphysics that recognizes a divine reality that is substantial to the material world, to life, and to the mind. The psychology that finds in the soul something similar or even identical to that divine reality, the ethics that places the final objective of the human being in the knowledge of the immanent and transcendent basis of all beings, which is immemorial and universal. Perennial philosophy can be traced among the popular tradition of primitive peoples, in all the traditions of the world that have had their echo in each of the great religions. Collapse. The matrix is collapsing, according to Benjamin Fulford. Sometimes hundreds or even thousands of years of history unfold in a matter of weeks. Think of the sack of Rome or the first unification of China. We are now at such a moment. The control matrix is collapsing and we are heading towards some kind of climax. The biggest sign of this in the last week has been the awakening of the majority of the Western population to artificial weather modification worldwide. Currently, more than 50 countries carry out activities on artificial weather modification, the status of which is recorded in the periodic reports made by the Committee of Experts of the World Meteorological Organization. People in the truth movement have known about this for a long time. However, we have been in a bubble preaching to the converted for most of this time. The vast majority of people remained uninformed. What is different now is that people who don't pay attention to the news and only read gossip columns are realizing this. General Michael Flynn, for example, says that the DD case is going to implicate musicians, athletes, politicians, and the media. Breaking news. Third assassination attempt against Donald Trump foiled. A man in possession of high-caliber weapons was arrested on October 13th in Coachella, California, at a site near where Trump was to hold a rally, according to Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. The driver, identified as 49-year-old Ben Miller of Las Vegas, was found in illegal possession of a shotgun, a loaded pistol, and a high-capacity magazine. The American electoral soap opera As the World Burns receives the warning that something huge is about to happen, according to such a file. The National Hurricane Center is monitoring the possible formation of a new cyclone in the Atlantic. Solar Storm Alert. Minor geomagnetic storms are possible on October 15th and 16th due to a coronal mass ejection headed toward Earth. It was launched on October 11th and is expected to produce only a grazing impact. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Emirates, Bahrain, and Kuwait have declared themselves neutral in the Iran-Israel conflict and will not allow the use of air bases against Iran. Economy. CGI's Morgan says financial systems keep people trapped in poverty. The banking system sounds great if you live in a middle-class bubble, but these systems don't work for everyone. Millions of poor people are unbanked and have no access to banking services and know the system won't help them. According to Steve Biko, every economic revolution has been carried out ruthlessly, and the losers have been left to fend for themselves. The first industrial revolution did little or nothing to compensate or train the affected manual workers. Automation of work eliminated more and more obsolete workers and did nothing to cushion their fall. Now we have progressed. If they want mineral deposits on which state sits, they direct a hurricane at them. Curious. Human resonance is going crazy. Scientists claim that two people communicated in dreams for the first time. Hypo found crying on the street after falling off a truck. Hollywood make lots of science fiction movies about space, but very few movies about underground cities. A woman claims she literally turned into a furry Harry Potter character after drinking water from a cup containing a slug. Fruits of the Council of Nicaea. They killed all other schools, suppressed other gospels, and burnt Gnostic scriptures. Then they established celibate monasteries for men, while Jewish rabbis followed the motto of "be fruitful and multiply," and started families. For the next 1,500 years, they killed so-called heretics. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.